Welcome to the Verde Valley Sanctuary. Today, I am joined by the Verde Valley Sanctuary President, Ray Mossy. Ray, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio today to have a discussion about what brings us to the work that we're doing here at the sanctuary. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what brought you here to the sanctuary?
Yes, my name is Ray Mossy. I'm 53 years old. I'm still working on that. My journey was a long journey. I grew up in a household of domestic violence. My father was an abusive alcoholic. Don't let anybody ever say your children won't remember that, because trust me, when your dad puts his hands on your mom, I don't care what age you are, you remember that stuff, especially when it's really, really bad. So that was the atmosphere I grew up in. When I was 18, just get out of the house. I went right into the military. There was no college. We grew up. I was homeless my junior year in high school. We were living in a tent in Colorado. I had to wake up my brother so we could ride the bus to school. So yeah, when I turned 18, when I was 16, my dad said it was time for me to start working and support the family, because he didn't work. Drinking was his job, so it was my mom and I that worked. So from 16 on, I was supporting our family, my mom and I. Yeah, I always, because of this field has always been of interest to me, because growing up in it, the way I grew up has dictated my whole life, from becoming a police officer to eventually as a state senator, writing the first domestic violence law for the state of Nebraska. Everything that happened along the way has led me to where I was. Unfortunately, the journey can be rough. When you're growing, you feel so helpless. That's the only way I can describe it. And I'm not the type of personality that does well with helplessness. So I started working out, getting in shape. Most guys I know that become protectors, that they kind of start like that. You don't want that to happen to any of your family members again. And you have a whole sense. And when you become a police officer and you start working it, you go into houses and I had an advantage. I would walk into that house and I would know what's going on right away. You can feel the air. It's crazy. When you grow up in that, you can feel it when you walk in. And what a relief it was for me to be like, walk in and tell a child, you're going to be safe tonight. Because I did not leave unless that child was going to be safe at night, because I remember what that felt like. So.
What I hear is this sense of being able to show up in a way of understanding for those that you saw were being hurt. That even as a police officer, your experience brought you to respond to domestic violence in a way that was perhaps different than other police officers who may not have shared that experience. Can you tell me a little bit about how that experience was brought into your policing?
Well, of course, in the course of the way I grew up, I don't know. There's I always wonder. There's types of people. There's two types of people: those that run towards stuff and those that run from it. And I'm like a big thinker. I'm always like, what makes a difference between those that run towards and those that run from stuff? Because stuff just fascinates me. I'm a runner to stuff. I had an advantage because I could feel what was going on in the house. Of course, at the same time growing up, I still had all my dad and the stuff that was going on with him. So that didn't stop when I left the house. Don't get me wrong. Matter of fact, it got worse after I left the house. So amongst the way, of course, you're constantly learning as you were. And it was like 10 years ago when Hurricane Ike, we were living in Galveston, Texas, came through and we had to evacuate the island. It was only going to take an act of God for me to go anywhere with my dad, and that's what it took. And things got really bad. He loaded the shotgun. He had AK-47s. He loaded them. He was going to shoot me and my mom. I took off. Police came, took him down. And from that point on, he blamed me for the rest of his life until he committed suicide 4 months ago, that I was to blame for his problems. Of course, I didn't buy it. That's what you do. We try and put our stuff on other people because we don't want to look at ourselves. And so luckily, when that was going on, I'd been advanced enough to where I was learning enough about myself and people that I wanted to be like, to where I started to learn, what do I want to let into my life and what I don't want to let into my life. Because as you get older, like for me, peace is very important in my life. If you're not going to bring peace to my life, why be a part of it? So to speak, my inner circle, of course. That's what I like about domestic violence, is because I want to help people find peace. Not actually like about it. I work in the field because I know what they want, because I wanted that too. And it's a very difficult. My mom couldn't leave my dad because of finances.
So hearing this, I hear elements of how the sanctuary responds and some of the ways that the sanctuary shows up for people. For instance, your mom not financially being able to leave. One of the things that the sanctuary does is address this by providing safe shelter. And it's the foundation for empowering somebody to leave a situation in which they're feeling stuck and they're feeling trapped in. The work of rescuing somebody from domestic violence is, it's multitudinous in a way, right? We have a multifaceted approach towards the way that we address the trauma that's experienced and how we help those that, including legal advocacy, that's a big deal, helping somebody to legally and be autonomous and to be able to separate and to find freedom. We have the outreach center in which we can help people to be able to connect with support groups, because it sounds like some of these elements were very important to you in your own personal journey, and now you have the honor of being able to offer these services to others. Tell me about what that experience is like, going from a place where you needed this to a place where you get to now offer this.
I think, well, we were just talking about that earlier before we started talking about this, how it just, every day, I can't believe that I've been blessed to be in this position. But real quick, I just want to backtrack. How I got here was when my wife got hired by Sedona, we moved out here. And what's so important about people is taking action. And the only reason I say this is because nothing happens till you do something. And one thing I've learned through life is that God does reward willingness. So we moved to Sedona, and I'm like, domestic violence has always been my thing. So I was like, all right, well, they probably got a thrift store somewhere around here. And I happen to go to Twice Nice here, where we're at right now, almost 2 years ago. And Barry was in there, and I was like, hi, I'd like to volunteer. Didn't say nothing about, anything. He's like, and he asked me some of my background. He's like, wow. And I'd heard that, I'd heard it before and stuff like that. And then I kept coming. I was volunteering twice a week, and then eventually, like a year later, I got on the board. And now almost a year later, I'm like, wow, I'm the board president, and I'm doing what I've wanted to do my whole life. And what I believe everything has led me up to this point, all my life experiences, which are an awful lot, in leaving a legacy. You want to leave something behind. So, and the one thing I'm most excited about is our transitional housing. When we get the transitional housing open, that's just a huge element. That's one of the biggest parts. Is like, yeah, you can get people. We get people here, but then where do they go after that? This is not like a 1 month and you're okay thing. It takes some time to go through trauma, and you need to be in a place where you can do that. That's why a lot of our residents stay a while, but this enables us to go even so much further, because a mother with 2 kids who's trying to make it, we can have her here, help her here, and then move her to transitional housing where she gets even more help to continue until she's able to, go out on her own and get a job, and her kids are in school, and she can start, finding that she'll be okay by herself. I'm really excited about that.
So tell us a little bit more specifically about this transitional housing and what the Verde Valley Sanctuary is doing right now to provide this much needed service. Because like you described, the sanctuary now is a 28-bed facility, and that is part of the healing, but what happens after that? And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about what the sanctuary is doing to address that.
Yeah, trauma-informed therapy, it takes a while, and it takes special people that can bring that out in somebody. I've been around people when they're going through trauma therapy, and it takes a special person to be in this field, because you have to be able to look at others and see what they're going through. And it ain't about you when you work in this field. It's about what you can bring and who you can help. And that's why people like myself stay in this field. As they're getting that help, and then of course with the kids, you've got to have people around you. It's just there's so many things that they don't want to face. That's what keeps a lot of people from getting better sometimes. There's just a lot of stuff they don't want to face and have to go through, but they don't know what's waiting on the other side of it. It's like, if you've never tasted chocolate cake, I can't tell you what chocolate cake tastes like. But trust me, I've tasted chocolate cake now. that's kind of how this all works. God rewards willingness, but you got to do something first. We'll help you get there the rest of the way, but you got to start somewhere. Got to start somewhere, and that's where the action takes place. It's when I get up off my knees every morning. That's what counts. What I do when I get up and start my day. But back to, I'm sorry, I tried. It's just another level that we can add to helping people get on a track to providing for themselves and peace in their life, and knowing that life doesn't have to be that way. It's not. As a matter of fact, it's not meant to be that way. Trust me, it's more than I ever thought it could be. And I went through a lot of stuff to get to where I'm at right now. So we all do. It's one thing I've learned is it's relevant what your problem is. What your biggest problem is and someone else's might be different, but it's still the same. My biggest problem is always my biggest problem. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Those are the things that you allow people start looking at your inner self and looking at things. What you bring through, what you're good at, what you can do. For me, a lot of hope came in knowing what my gifts are. And when I honed in on my gifts, you know the direction you're supposed to go. Because I honestly believe that when you're going the direction that God gives you your gifts, your life goes in that direction. That's why He gave you the gifts, to use them. And that's just that's more advanced stuff. That's stuff after you've been with us a while, you start understanding and seeing. But early on, you don't see that stuff. It's just pain and it's hurt, and it doesn't seem like because you've been in hell, it doesn't seem like there's a way out, but there is.
I think that's such an important understanding, is that the housing that we're providing in the transitional housing that we're providing goes much more beyond just shelter. It's providing somebody the safety and the space that they need in order to process the deepest hurt that they've ever experienced and the cycles that they're stuck in as a result of that. And so what I hear is that the housing project is about creating the ability for somebody to transition from a shelter into more of a stable living environment. But the purpose behind that transitional environment is more spiritual in nature. It's about the person themselves and what they need to do to help themselves. Because there is all the support that we can offer them, but there's also this nature, like you talked about, of the willingness. And I sense that with the clients that I've met come through the shelter, is that the way that it works and the reason that it works is because of that willingness. They're willing to show up, they're willing to do the work. And so long as the people that we're there to help are willing to do the work, we have the structure and the support necessary that they need in order to go through whatever they need to go through. And some of the support that I think about is counseling, some of it is support groups. I love the sound healing room that we have, where people can just really bring themselves into the present. There's a lot of therapies now that are learning that these traumas are rooted in the past, and they're preceded by this pathway, this neural pathway in the brain that just continues to replay the trauma over and over again. And it again and again comes into the everyday life of the residents that we work with. It sounds like you've had your own experience with that, and I know that as you have experienced it and as you now get to help, I'm curious where is domestic violence right now in the need of meeting the need of the people that are hurting? What do we need to do in order to continue to meet the needs of the people that are hurting?
Oh my goodness, since COVID has started, the way I grew up, I could not imagine being stuck in my house for a year with my dad. I couldn't fathom that. To watch somebody being somewhere that they don't have to be and not doing nothing about it, it's just, and that's what that bothers me about what's going on right now, is I don't feel there's enough people doing enough about stuff. Oh, there's plenty of people talking about everything, but I find out very few people are. It's the person that gets up and does. But anyways, That's a whole, I used to do a lot of groups. I worked in recovery for 15 years, so I'm literally an expert in this field. I've done everything. I've been an admissions director. I've worked with all the psych units in Arizona. I've done it all. Counseling, I completed all my counselor intern hours and when I was living in Houston, but I didn't want to be, I've always been an in trenches guy. When I was a police officer, I was a SWAT guy. When I was in the military, I did special, not like, I wasn't special, like Green Beret special, but I was, the police training I had was all, I trained with Rangers, so I did some special things too. But, well, we're taking a lot more active role. I noticed Dustin's done a tremendous job with the website. My wife commented on that. My wife is a police officer, by the way. She's a sergeant. I needed somebody like that to keep me in lines, I suppose. I'm a retired police officer also. I was hit by a drunk driver, and I retired from the Omaha Police Department with a full disability pension from the police department. So yeah, I've been along there too. It's just, well, when my wife comes home at night, she talks about it. They average, I don't know. I know they're averaging a lot more domestic violence calls than they did because Sedona's not a very big town, and when you're having 2, 3 a day, that's quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, somebody needs to go to jail. So those are calls that occupy officers for quite a while. It's not just like a ticket. You're on 3 or 4 hours. It can be, and that takes somebody out of service. That's then affects the whole city. So domestic violence really plays in a lot bigger role than people don't realize. Like when you're taking officers off the street and somebody's breaking into your house and no one's able to respond right away because they're handling domestic violence stuff, no, that's not how society is supposed to be. We got enough things wrong with society today, for sure. We need some people doing the right things, and we're doing that. We're opening the resources. We're providing the resources that people need. I don't know how we make ourselves more vocal. I think about that too, like to where everybody knows this is the place you can go to. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of what we're working on right now. I know Dustin's doing a great job with that, and our executive director Nicole, we talk about that. I think we're expanding well. In the last couple months, we're opening our 3rd thrift store in Camp Verde. Our transitional housing's opening, and this is just the start of really what we envision that this could be. Matthew started the vision, Matthew Kelly, and we want to continue the vision of growing to where people can actually, it's like a community. You need to be around people like you to help you. That's the only way you can. If no one's been through what you've been through, they can't help you. Yeah, they can help you, where the bathroom is or help you somewhere else, but they can't help you internally. Somebody needs to be where you've been, and we've been there. And I think that's what I like about our staff. Our executive director, she used to be a police officer also. We talk about that you can tell. It's just, we don't get all, like here, we don't pound religion at anybody. Everybody has to find their own way. Their power greater than them, somebody greater than you got to find somebody to help you. You got to latch onto something. And whatever your picture of God could be, some people choose nature, I don't, but whatever helps you, you need to find that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the nature of healing is best done with people who've been through it themselves. It requires a community like you're talking about. The aspect of community in recovery has been proven to be vital for years, and one of the things that the sanctuary does is provide a community where there's genuine relationships that come out of it. Yeah. I recently sat down with a woman named Althea who has gone through the sanctuary and completed and is now a peer mentor. And in sitting down with her and hearing her share her story of recovery, one of the elements that continued to come through as she spoke about the staff at the sanctuary is the way that she felt compassion and love from them. And anyone who's been in a situation where they've been abused knows that what's missing from them, what they're really looking for, and oftentimes searching in the wrong places, is for love. They're looking for a relationship, and they're looking for a connection. And what we provide at the sanctuary is so much more than just shelter. It's the presence to really care about those that we're working with, that when we're sitting there and listening to somebody share the most deepest, intimate moments of their life, that we're not distracted by the cell phone or going off to be looking at something else, that we're fully present with them, and that we are there to help them understand that they matter, that their story matters to us. And it's in that I see this impact, and I want to take a moment to thank everybody who supports the Verde Valley Sanctuary financially, and to mention that we are hosting a fundraising campaign right now for Arizona Gives Day. And Arizona Gives Day is this Saturday, April 6th. And the funding that we receive through Arizona Gives Day is unrestricted, which allows us to be very creative in the way that we meet the needs of the people that we work with.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so that funding is a part of the work that we're doing psychologically and spiritually, and the housing itself. I'd like to just know a little bit about how we are going to use this money. If a donor wants to give us money right now to support the work that we're doing, how's their money going to impact the people right now?
A lot of times when clients come, I call it clients, but when they come to us, they have financial needs that are unmet, whether, bills, expenses. We've actually, somebody needed to go home to further their care, and we paid their way home. And it was out of state. We bought them a ticket to go home. All the things we need to do, like transportation issues, meals, just everything you could possibly think of for somebody starting their life over again. Granted, when you show up there, you show up with a bag, and that represents your life, but it doesn't. It does not. And people need a lot of things. Kids do. It's expensive. And we do this for free. Most places in the United States charge, $15,000 a month for people to go there. The really nice ones are about $50,000 to $100,000. I've toured them. Yeah, they're very nice. We do this for free. I don't get paid. I do. And it's not about money or anything ever like that. People know that I don't get paid. I get my payment other way, somewhere else, not from here. It's all about giving back, and this is the best way. Like, we're able to start looking at doing new things. When you have unrestricted funding, you're allowed to do so much more than grant funding. It needs to go there, or there. But things like I would like to see. I'd like to see us get a big van. So like on weekends, people they do like a group outing, or maybe once a week they get together, they barbecue. Things like that involve the core group a little bit more, because the closer you get with one another, you're there to help each other, and you start to realize that. Of course, with the shelter, with the transitional housing opening up, that's going to be, we're doing some remodeling so we can make some more room for more people, and of course, with kids going to be there, there are things we want to do there to make that enjoyable for them, and that all that costs. And then of course you have the daily overhead stuff, which is crazy. Now the board president will get bids, and I'm like, wow, what's that much for a roof? You don't realize these things. When your house isn't as big as the sanctuary, you don't realize how expensive it is for a new roof. And then a roof that's well enough to where you don't have to keep coming back and making all these repairs that end up nickel and diming you. You do it right the one time, and that saves us from being nickel and dime. And that's kind of where we're at right now. A lot of our property is older, and it needs a little bit better upkeep. It just all goes into that. We're expanding back more to an area to include more room, but you have to pave, all this stuff you have to do. And our contributions to do these things come from you. And what's also too, I encourage people to come out, see the people that, I know when I'm giving some money somewhere, I want to be sure the people that are handling it are people that I'm like, all right, it's good. They're doing the right thing. And here I can tell you that is happening, or I wouldn't be here.
Oh, without a question. And I love the analogy that you're talking about of a house. Like, if you're a single family residence and you have a house, you know that there's constant upkeep on that house. And here we have a large family. Yeah. We have several families that are all living in their own quarters.
One guy had 10 kids that one time.
Yeah, for sure.
You just don't know, yeah.
It's a big project. We're constantly involved in saving families. And we get calls from people from around the country that are looking to us to help them find a new life. And beginning with providing safe shelter and getting them into transitional housing afterwards, and helping them find a community and helping them connect with the resources that they need there and beyond is a part of why this unrestricted funding is so necessary. Is because it does allow us that creativity to meet the needs that grant funding does not allow for, because that funding is very specific to various aspects of the program that are continuous. And we're really grateful at the sanctuary to have the support and the funding of foundations and grantors, but it is the community. It's you who provide us with the funding to be the best, to really be able to meet the needs in a way that we understand because we've gone through it, that this person needs. If you can imagine needing to see your family and not having the money to fly out, that's not something that traditional funding allows for. But your unrestricted funding allows for us to be very impactful in meeting the needs of individuals exactly where they're at.
And a lot of people show up at our shelter in the middle of the night. You know, a mom and 2 kids. You don't have time when in a domestic violence situation, there ain't really no packing time. You know, me growing up in that environment, I always had what I called a go bag. You know, so you get out of the house, you grab, you have something because stuff is really bad in that house. But yeah, when you show up, they don't have anything. I mean, something as simple as like, I got a donation from Sedona Police Department the other day with all these little teddy bears. Something as little as that, when a child comes in and you hand them a teddy bear that has nothing, it'll choke me up if I start talking, but it does. You hand them the teddy bear, and what that symbolizes and what that does for them, man, you never know when you'll create a memory for somebody. I go back that a lot, and I look at the people that created memories in my life. I try and tell them that they did, because it's important to. But yeah, there are people that created memories that you just don't know how by helping somebody. That little child you gave a teddy bear to could become president of the United States. You don't know. I grew up homeless in a trailer park, and I became a state senator. Other things addiction took me other places, unfortunately. But that's not how the story ends. So
no. And that's so impactful, because a lot of times we feel that the story is going to end exactly how it began. And there's this cycle of domestic violence that we're all familiar with. And one of the things it's on all of our branding is that we are here to break the cycle of domestic violence. And that cycle is broken in very impactful small ways. I love the way that you share about just giving somebody a teddy bear, giving somebody a memory, something that they can take away from them or take away with them. As I sat down to talk to Althea, as she shared about her experience at the Verde Valley Sanctuary, she was reiterating so many moments where she was sharing something or she was told something that are imprinted in her memory forever. You can see now that she has these memories that will sustain her in her recovery, and she knows that her life matters. She knows that she matters, and she knows that she has a community of people who care about her. And that's a part of what your funds help us to create. It helps us to create these lasting memories that will support somebody long after they leave the Verde Valley.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The one thing I love about her is whenever she comes back, she's an example of there is a way out. You know, sometimes you don't believe it until you're with somebody and you've showed up at the same place that they are at the same time, and they get out and you're like, wow, it is possible. Because the way I have to see something working. You know, that's just me. Once I see it, I'm like, okay, all right, yes, I can follow that. You know, I want to be like that person. They made it out. What do I got to do? It is so, it's so, you can't put a word on what the impact, what somebody like her will brings, like, with all she's been through, and she shows up with a light in her eye, that's, you know, it speaks for itself. And people that know her, you just go, wow. We believe in miracles here. I personally do. We do a lot. We do miracles here an awful lot. And so, yes, there are modern day miracles, and that's an example of one too.
I'm going to play Althea's interview again with this. I've been showing her interview live the last couple of days because her story is a miracle. You can see it. You see the beginning of her story.
Can't deny it.
Yeah. It looks like there's no way on earth that this is going to end well. There's no way. This is tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy. And then, as simple as people caring and a group of people caring provided all the necessary environment for her to now declare that she is free. Yeah. She is free. With tears in her eyes, she's expressing this freedom that a lot of people don't ever realize is even possible.
She sleeps at night.
Oh, she sings from her heart, and she speaks with passion, and she is compassionate and caring to other residents who now look at her as like a lighthouse. Yeah. It's like they're going through the storms in their life, and they look at Althea and they're like, wow, I might be able to do this. I think I can do this. And the impact of that belief, of believing that somebody can heal from the traumas that they experienced in their life, and that they can break the cycle of domestic violence. I think that, Ray, I just really appreciate you and your candor today and your conversation. Because
can I add one thing to that?
Oh, please, yes.
What I love about what you're saying, it's hard for me to, when I'm like, I get so involved and I love talking about this stuff. I always talk like for faith. My faith is hope with a track record. I hoped that maybe I could just get there. And once my hope started happening, I hope I could get there. I got there. Hope I can get here. I got there. Hope I get there. I can get there. Hope is such an amazing therapeutic thing. You can't put a price on hope. And my faith is hope with a track record.
No question. Hope with a track record. That's the Verde Valley Sanctuary in a nutshell.
There you go.
We are hope for the hopeless with a track record that we are going to continue to be able to follow through with your help. If you are in all compelled by the story that we shared today, if you're at all moved to help the work that we're doing, I encourage you to go to our website, theverdevalleysanctuary.org. If you scroll down to the middle of the page, you'll see our Arizona Gives campaign live right there. For the next 2 days, we are in need of raising this unrestricted funding so that we can continue to make these miracles happen. These miracles happen because of you. So we want to thank you from everybody at the Verde Valley Sanctuary. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your support. And we are able to do this because of the generosity of people like you. This live stream production today is brought to you by the Sedona UAS team. I'd like to thank Charles for being here today and for Jason Polanski for allowing us this live stream. If you have live stream needs in Sedona, be sure to reach out to Sedona UAS.